Hi Audacious Kids! Here's another episode of Audacious Kids Got Talent. That's right, you right there, Mr., Mrs., Audacious Kid, you've got talent. God has put gifts and talents inside you and the person next to you and each one of us in the room. And they're all different and different types and different kinds, and it's super exciting discovering the talents that God has given us. Now I want us to look at a couple of talents today that God has gifted us, maybe some of us in the room especially. And that is one, the gift of being able to lead. Don't know if you know anybody who's good at leading. Or the gift of being able to lift up. Now I don't mean super strong muscles lifting up off the ground, but lifting up and encouraging each other. Two awesome gifts. Now you might think, what do I need those gifts for? Give me a PlayStation, not that. But actually, these are really important gifts that we need, and God has put in different ones of us in different amounts. Now, one time, Sarah and I, we were on a little holiday with some of our friends. It was amazing. We hired a boat. So we went sailing on a boat. So not like a big ferry, but actually a smaller boat, but with big sails, and we would spend all day pulling the ropes, and it was amazing because you had to pull the ropes and the sail went up, and then when it was going too fast you had to pull the ropes again and the sails came down, and we had such a good adventure. And we went to islands. It was amazing. However, one day when we were out on the boat, the weather got really, really stormy, and the waves started coming higher and lower, and the whole boat was coming like this, and it was getting a little bit scary. And then one of my friends who was on the boat with us, she fell over the side into the water in the storm, and we're like, oh no, what are we gonna do? And it was crazy because the second she dropped in, we were still going, traveling super fast, and so before I could blink, she'd gone. And we had to go back and rescue her. And the storm, and we were pulling, and the sails were going in the opposite direction, and it was, or could have been, an absolute disaster. But on this ship, on this boat, we also hired a captain. And he knew exactly what to do. For me and some of my friends, we were like going, what do we do? But this captain, he was calm as you like. He didn't panic. He said very clearly, right, you, Darren, go and stand on the end and point to your friend and do not take your eyes off whatsoever. That is your job. Do not move. Do you understand? Darren was like, yeah, okay. And he went and stood on the boat and he pointed. And then he said to me and my brother Paul, right, you are on the ropes. Go and get it. And we had to go and follow his instructions and pull the ropes. And we didn't really know what was happening, but we just did as we were told. And the captain turned the boat around, even in the storm, and it slowed down, and we managed to go back and rescue my friend. And then between the rest of us, we pulled her out of the water and saved her life so she didn't drown. It was rather dramatic, but very exciting. But in that moment, it was really important that somebody in our group was the leader. Somebody had the gift of being a leader. The captain was in charge, and he told us what to do. There wasn't any time to argue and somebody else say, no, I want to be the captain. No, I want to be the captain. No, I'm in charge. Let me take... No. We had one leader, and he helped us in this terrible situation. And with his clear instructions and help and strategy of how to save our friend, the disaster was avoided, and it's now a wonderful story that I can tell rather than a bad ending. Now, there were other people in our team that weren't the captain and weren't leading and weren't particularly strong to pull all the ropes and do the heavy lifting, but it was really important that they encouraged everybody and encouraged the girl that had fallen in and actually helped lift everyone's spirits. Because when it got hard on the ropes and my arms were tired, they were shouting, come on, Keith, you can do it. Pull it harder, pull it harder. And as I pulled the ropes, I was like, yes. And they were shouting to the girl who'd fallen in, and they were encouraging her and saying, keep swimming, you can do it. We're coming for you. Don't give up. And their lift up gifts were amazing as they really encouraged them. And I think it's amazing that God has made us different. Not everybody can be the leader. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where there's too many leaders and everybody trying to boss everybody about. And what happens is nothing gets done. But God has given some of us the gift of leadership and being able to lead and strategically think about how to get through situations. In fact, in the Bible, Jesus actually says about the different gifts that he's given us. So it says, Jesus gave some to be the apostles, which are the leaders, some to be prophets, some to be evangelists, which is telling people about Jesus, some to be pastors and teachers, which is looking after people and caring for them and teaching them, to prepare God's people for works of service so that the body of Christ may be built up until we all reach unity in the faith and in the knowledge of the Son of God, who become mature, attaining to the whole measurement of the fullness of Christ. And they're called the Ephesians 4 gifts. God has given the church all these different gifts that we can operate in. And some of us are called to be leaders. And we don't need to be embarrassed about it. We need to be confident in the gift that God has given us. But some of us are called to lift up, to encourage and help one another. And that's really important that we do our gift as well. Now, in the Bible, there's lots of different examples. I don't know if you remember the story of Josiah, who was a king. He became a king when he was 8 years old. Imagine being a king aged 8. Someone gave him the crown, probably better than this hat. But after a while, when he'd grown up a little bit, he discovered that the whole nation was not living God's way. And he found the Bible that nobody had opened for ages. And he opened it up and was like, whoa, we've got to live God's way. And so he chose, even though he was a young king, even though nobody had shown him what to do, he was going to lead the people in how to live for God. And it was an amazing story of using his leadership gift, even though he was young. But there are people in the Bible that have the lift-up gifts, the gifts of encouragement and wisdom and teaching. And I'm thinking of, there was a lady called Lydia, who the Apostle Paul met in Philippi, and he was preaching here and he was preaching there, and he was like so tired, and he'd been in prison, he'd been shipwrecked, and yet he met Lydia, who had an amazing gift of encouragement and hospitality. And she took him into her house and she cooked for him and she encouraged him. She gave him rest and she helped him out and helped Paul do the preaching that he was doing by lifting him up. Now, I don't know what spiritual gifts that God has given you, but I know he gives us these gifts. So maybe you could have a little think about what kind of gifts God might have given you. Maybe you're a leader, maybe you're a lift-upper, or maybe you're somewhere in between. But the reality is we've got the gift of being able to pray for each other, or encourage each other, or share our wisdom, or maybe we need to lead and be strategic in making decisions and helping people find their way to God. Imagine what our world would be like if we all worked in our best gift and worked together. Wouldn't that be awesome, Audacious Kids?